Hello, everybody, and welcome to the MedEvac Podcast. I'm your host, Christian Meyers, joined by our other host, David Reid.
Hello.
Before we hop into today's episode, please keep in mind there is a price for the show. You have to share it with a friend or family member. If you've listened before, you know this is a rule, and please continue doing it. But it's greatly appreciated.
Not many people are commenting and asking questions, though.
We do have a great guest that you can ask lots of questions to today, and a new producer behind the cameras. Patrick is back. Welcome back, Patrick.
Patrick is back.
Who's our guest today? Marcus Mader.
Howdy.
Mader. Welcome.
It's a powerful name.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for being here today. Marcus is a 21-year Air Force veteran. He's been a TACP or Tactical Air Control Party. Got that right?
That's right.
All right. Party. He's been a TACP for the last 21 years, currently serving in the San Antonio area. And welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Excited to be on.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, before we get into what a TACP is, because I want to dive a little bit deep into that, because the other day we covered that a TACP is not a tactical P where you take a knee.
You can take a TACP.
That's true.
Yeah, you can take a TACP. Yeah.
A TACP.
Okay. So let's lead up to we're going to set the tone right now on how this episode is going to go. So let's dive right into, my favorite question is why you joined the military, how you found yourself in your branch, and why TACP is a career choice.
Right on. So I'm a military brat. My dad did 21 years. He was a nuclear weapons specialist for a portion of that, and then a comptroller at the end of it.
First of all, what years was he a nuclear specialist?
Oh, geez. 80 to mid-90s time frame.
So kind of flirting with the Cold War a little bit.
A little bit.
About the time they were getting ready to use them, right?
That's right. He actually just left the nuclear enterprise right before we decided to fly one across the country.
And how was that growing up with that kind of high-speed career? I mean, that is got to be a lot of hours he was gone.
So it was. To be honest with you, though, I didn't know the difference. He wore the uniform. He went to work. We got to visit his office. Yeah, there's a huge missile in here that can do some terrible things, but cool. Let's go hang out and play softball afterwards, or whatever the thing was.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't. Go ahead.
No, as a kid, did you want to see that rocket go off? Probably. Or did he explain it?
No, it was definitely clear that that's not one that you...
you want to see.
Yeah.
Deterrence is the idea with these things. We don't want to actually have to use them.
They just have to sit and look pretty. Yeah.
Yeah. You just knew he went to work. That was it. You know what I mean? I don't think I had an appreciation back then for what it was that he was doing.
Sure. You mentioned losing a nuke. That's... do you know this story? The Air Force has lost more than one.
Well, I guarantee that most of our audience does not know this.
So there's a couple different stories. The one you're talking about, I'm assuming late 80s, was when they loaded they thought it was a dud, but they loaded a live round and flew it across the U.S.
That's right.
Accidentally. They loaded a live nuclear weapon. There's also been, a couple that have gone missing from plane crashes when they were being transported. Yeah, there's just nukes sitting out there.
Is that a no comment look right there?
Yeah, that's, this is not my field.
Yeah, this is like 40 years ago. They're probably long recovered.
Declassified.
But yeah, it's
obviously
popular at this point.
That had to be pretty crazy growing up in that environment. You were moving a lot probably. Or was he kind of stationed at a specific research facility? So
no, we were about every 4 years, we were on the move. Got to do some unique stuff. Back when he was in, Turkey was available for dependents. So, I spent 4 years of my life over in Turkey. We got evacuated when the Gulf War kicked off. So I think it was January 11th, something like that. First thing in the morning, Dad called the house, said, "Don't send the kids to school." We were on a C-5 that night, headed home.
Damn.
Back to the States. So... yeah, it was definitely interesting.
Sets the precedent early too. Yeah.
How old were you when that evacuation took place?
So that was 91. So I was 9 years old.
Okay.
And how did that feel? I mean, was it a pretty controlled evacuation or was it erratic and you knew something bad was going to happen?
So when he called, we could kind of sense that something was going on. And he's like, "Man, put the kids up in the closet. Let's figure out what's going on." Incirlik was within striking distance from Saddam. So I I think he was panicked, but we were like, man, this is weird. Like, what are we doing? We're hiding in a closet. Okay, let's pack some bags. And then, I didn't realize it until we got out of, a certain airspace and we were escorted by F-15s on the way out. Like, it was that important that, I was like, shit, I wanted to see the airplanes. Like, somebody could have told me they were out there. That would have been cool. But it didn't really dawn on us. Like, oh, okay, we're headed home.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then, back home for about 6 months while they're figuring out what's going on over there.
9 years old. That's got to be a pretty impactful age to be just spun up and evacuated by C-5 and jets accompanying you out of the country.
But it wasn't, right? It wasn't like...
Because you didn't realize.
It wasn't like the alarms were going off and everybody was rushing us and this, that, and the other.
Explosions going off in the background.
No, it was like, hey, we're gonna go home. We're gonna go on vacation for 6 months. Pack your bags. We'll see you later. I had a younger brother I have a younger brother that's 3 years younger than me and a younger sister that's 3 years younger than him. So me and mom are basically trying to herd the kittens through the airports and things of that nature to get home. Like, I remember that, carrying, being strapped with 2 or 3 bags because you had to carry the diaper bag and this and that.
Yeah.
But
obviously it was impactful. Like, how many memories do you have at 9 years old?
Not many.
Yeah. I mean, not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot.
Yeah, 9/11. I was 10 when 9/11 happened, so that was
and that's
about
probably
the same age.
Yeah, the significant memory that you have at that age.
Yeah,
which means that's terrifying. That's right. Think about it. You weren't old enough to be terrified, which is good. But that's crazy. That is an insane story, and I went off on a little tangent on that one because that's super interesting. So you grew up in that atmosphere. And do you think that contributed to your inspiration for going into the military?
Yeah, so I think the entire time I had an idea that I was going to go into the military. I had flirted a little bit with architecture in high school.
Okay.
So, there was an idea that, let's go into, the collegiate realm. Let's get some architecture type stuff done. And if that works out, cool. But, the entire time there was a plan to do ROTC and to have the military as an opportunity when it was all said and done. So
sure, that makes sense.
Yep.
And the branch choice?
Yeah, so Dad was Air Force, right? So we stuck with the Air Force.
Okay.
He's, absolutely, hey, you're not going to the Army, you're not going to the Marines. And I was like, okay. And Dad, man, he was one of those guys that when I told him I was going to become a TACP, he's like, the Air Force has a lot of like air-conditioned jobs where you can sit in an office and not necessarily have to dodge bullets. And I was like, yeah, Dad, that doesn't sound exciting at all. So.
My thing is, I always tell people, go into the Air Force if you plan on thinking about your future outside of the military. Trade skills.
Well, then I go out, right? So I join the Air Force and I pick the one job, one of few jobs that spends all its time with the Army.
Yeah.
Goes and plays G.I. Joe. So guess I got the best of both worlds.
That was your loophole. That was your way around.
Right.
What did your dad say to that?
He didn't really. He just supportive. You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
And you come to find out that even after 20 years of combat, people still have a hard time understanding what Air Force Special Warfare is, what a TACP is. Like most of them, you see a black beret walking across the base, most people think it's a security forces guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know that he necessarily knew what I was getting into when I got into it.
Gotcha.
That's fair.
Why don't you tell us what a TACP is?
Yeah, so a TACP is a member of the Air Force Special Warfare branch, right? The as mentioned earlier, Tactical Air Control Party. Man, our big bread and butter for the last 20 years has been dropping bombs on bad guys in support of some sort of maneuver element, right? Whether it's the Army, the Navy, you name it. Like our job is to go out there in support of the Air Force, right? Like we want to make sure that the airplanes get into the fight at the right time, in the right way, and hit the right guys. Yeah. Really, that's what we've been doing for the last 20 years. But man, we are such more of a capable force. We bring a lot of command and control to an environment. All the chaos that's happening when you think about an airstrike and the three-dimensionalness of it, with stacking airplanes, dropping bombs through airspaces.
Oh yeah.
Which guys do we want the bombs to hit? Which ones do we not want them to hit? And then the timing in which you do it. We're just kind of the puppet master out there getting after that stuff. But yeah, we so that's been what we've been doing for the last 20 years because that's what the nation's been asking us to do for the last 20 years. And now, like everybody else, we're starting to shift our focus to what does the future look like and things of that nature. You know, people have lots of theories whether there will be, you know, boots on the ground or not have boots on the ground.
Yeah, that's my next question.
Is it going to be drones? Is it going to be manned airplanes? Like, what does the future look like?
Yeah.
And what's the benefits of having boots on the ground?
Yeah, so that's the deal, right? Planes flying at 30,000 feet, going 450 knots, trying to drop a 500-pound bomb onto, you know, this barrel right here.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that in a permissive environment, let alone you get into a semi-permissive or denied environment.
Friendlies on the ground too. I almost got murked myself by a JDAM. For one dude, by the way.
Oh,
yeah. So that was a
bang for the buck there.
Hard taxpayer dollars at work.
Yeah, so that
story's pretty great though.
It's funny you bring that up because that's the other portion of us being there, right? Like it's to be able to put the right munition or use the right tactic at the right time. You know, to do we want to get into a fight and draw these guys out, or is the mission to get through this thing so we can get on to the next thing?
Yeah.
Like being able to bring that air power and basically, you know, we'll say anything that flies, whether it's artillery, helicopters, you name it. If it's in the air, we're going to have some sort of say in it to try and get the job done.
That makes sense. You're talking about different types of munitions, and it brought something up. I was reading. I saw an article last week about the MOAB bomb that they dropped a couple years ago. And they were kind of delving in a little deeper into it and like the significance of its use in combat. It's only been used like a handful of times.
Yeah, I'm tracking the one that I think it was dropped in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And that's the only one that I would even be able to think about recalling.
Yeah. What is the difference there between something of that magnitude versus like a traditional JDAM or
well,
like when are you making those decisions to like when you're evaluating your targets, right? What is the determining criteria to step it up a notch into something of that magnitude? Or is that even a call that you're making on the ground?
So generally speaking, that's going to be some sort of, you know, strategic effects. You know, you think about that bomb going off, the MOAB going off, you're talking about cities disappearing, you know, potentially, right?
It's that big, yeah.
Well, and Afghanistan's got small cities too.
Yeah,
right? It's not like we're trying to take out Kandahar with the MOAB.
San Antonio, yeah.
You know, that's a strategic decisions that's getting made well above, you know, our levels.
Well above a TACP, right? To call in that sort of firepower. That's right. Or do you have those assets on the ground as well, helping facilitate that mission?
So at the end of the day, right, like it starts with the desired end state, right? And if the desired end state is that this is a, you know, terrorist training camp and there is nothing good about it and we don't want it to be here anymore. Yeah. We push that desired end state up the chain and it gets to the right decision makers to go, hey, let's pull out the MOAB and go ahead and do this thing. Because it could just as easy be, hey, you know, we want 12 2,000-pound JDAMs to get rid of this thing. And maybe that's the easier button. You know? So really it's less about being particular and saying, hey, I want this munition. Like we weaponeer a little bit, but we've got some really smart people that weaponeer in ways that a guy on the ground can never think of potentially. We give them a desired end state. We want this thing to go away. And they give us the munition and how to employ that munition to make that thing happen.
Interesting.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I was curious if that was just a call made on the ground or if there was like a whole strategic back end to that.
That's much larger, right? Like you don't just pick up the phone and go, "Hey guys, send a MOAB out here. We're going to do this."
Yeah.
So.
No, I was curious about how those decisions were made because I mean, dropping a bomb of that magnitude. I mean, obviously, they're still talking about it a couple years later. It obviously made a significant impact. You know, making decisions like that. But I digress. Sorry, I went off on a little tangent there.
No, those are great questions. Yeah. I think. Just kind of in addition to that, a question would be like, what are your like max capabilities without having to go up the chain like that? Like, is it like end at JDAM level? Like if I'm boots on the ground and I call this in, it's going to happen. What's the max?
Yeah. So generally speaking, it's going to, a lot of it's just going to be driven by what's available to you, you know?
Yeah.
So
assets in the air.
And we could go into hours about how the system works and this, that, and the other. But, you know, there's two kind of main brackets, if you will, right? There's pre-plans. Hey, we know that we're going out there. We've got the intel that shows that this guy is in this building, and if it gets to the point that we need to do our thing, we'll need these munitions, right? And we ask for that days in advance so that you get the right plane at the right time with the right munitions to do what you need to, right? The other side of it is, maybe you were out just on a reconnaissance patrol, and next thing you know, you're in a fight and they're in a hardened structure. Yeah, man, what are we doing, right? So, or what can we do, right? And that's where, we tell them what's going on, and man, that there are people in the command and control realm that will go out and find that guy, right? So, the plane may have launched on your mission because you guys were going out to do that thing we were talking about. And now we're in the fight and we need that thing. Like, we will take it and we will re-roll it and push it over to the guy that needs it. So, sometimes you just get what you get, right? So, hey, man, maybe it's 4 JDAMs because you need to level the compound and get out of there. Or 4 500-pounders versus a 2,000-pounder. Or you're trying to figure out, hey, there's a school that's X number of meters away. We can't have any effects hit that thing. Yeah. It's better that I come off with a few of these smaller bombs that have a smaller footprint than go with the big one that is potentially going to have some theater-wide effects.
Okay, gotcha. That makes a lot of sense as you explained it in that manner. But anyways, not to get too deep into what it's like being a TACP, but I wanted to get back onto the chronological aspect of your career specifically. So, what year did you actually end up joining?
So I went to the University of Tennessee for a year after I graduated high school. Tried to pursue the architecture thing like we talked about. Tried to pursue a little bit of football. Did ROTC. Really, ROTC was the only thing that I was knocking out of the park. And the university very politely asked me not to come back for a third semester. So it was time to figure out what I was going to do with my life.
Whoa.
Oh yeah.
Let's stop there.
Partying too much?
What's the reason?
Oh yeah, I had I think less than a 1 GPA. Like class was not what I was at college for.
Yeah.
You were not there to educate yourself. You didn't. So it was kind of like check the box.
It was. I didn't have any struggles with high school. Like, I was the kind of guy that could sleep through class and still pass with an A. And thought I was going to be able to take that work ethic to college, and it was going to work. And turns out it was an expensive lesson.
Yeah,
fair.
Although met my wife there, so lots of positive from the 1 year of.
So an even more expensive lesson. I got it.
So yeah, we're there. I get a contract to come in as a 53 gunner, so I'm going to be on helicopters. My mom worked in the recruiting squadron. I had kind of the ends on when kicker bonuses were coming.
Oh yeah.
I got the white glove treatment when you showed up. What job do you want? Like, hey, we'll find it. Okay, you just have to wait 3 months to go, kind of thing. And then, school ended, and I moved in with my now wife at the time. And about 3 days later, I moved out and then decided that, man, I needed to get in the military like yesterday. So they pushed up my contract. I had talked a little bit with a guy that did the Fellowship of Christian Athletes stuff while we were at UT. I didn't mention like, hey, combat control looks interesting, this, that, and the other. Not necessarily excited about the swimming portion of it. Like, never really practiced for it. He said, well, if it doesn't work out, there's this TACP thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't think about it, right? Just figured I'd be successful at CCT, PJ type lane, and left. Got to basic. Turned my paperwork in to be an F-16 crew chief, because at that time you couldn't come in as a guaranteed TACP. You could come in open journal, you could come in some certain things. Yeah. But that was one of those that you had to volunteer for once you got there.
Okay.
So I think it's week 3. I don't remember. Week 3 or week 4, you pick your job. I'd signed my paper. I'd considered putting nuclear down. Let's follow in Dad's footsteps. I was counseled that even if I put that as my 9th job, I was going to get it, because there's not a lot of people that are putting nukes down.
Yeah.
So I very quickly scratched that from the list and went back to the drawing board. Selected F-16, got picked to go be an F-16 crew chief.
Okay.
And then we got the recruiting brief from the TACP guys. I had gone to take the pass test. I did the underwater. I swam about 25 meters and was like, this is not for me. Saw my TI, said, hey, if you see the TACP recruiter, I'm super interested in talking to him, and then just never heard from him. So I'm going to be an F-16 crew chief, whatever. I'm in the military. I'm getting a paycheck. The world's going around.
Yeah.
And then the TACP recruiter comes around. And the TI calls me over, says, "Hey, if you're interested, go meet me at this barracks at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock, whatever it was." Got the recruiting spill and was like, "Man, I am in." Like they're showing videos of A-10s, killing tanks and bombs dropping and things blowing up. I was like, "Man, that sounds way more fun than turning wrenches on a flight line."
100% more fun.
So that guy went and pulled my paperwork from being an F-16 crew chief after it had already been submitted and pushed me to the TACP lane.
Nice. Wow. Little saving grace there, huh?
Oh, I'm so thankful for that guy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, your life could have been on a totally different trajectory. I know a lot of people who have ended up in that category and never really made it back out of that.
Sure.
It's unfortunate. But so you got picked up as a TACP and you go through all your training. Typical pipeline, obviously it's changed quite a bit in the last 20 plus years, right?
Yeah. So for me, when I came through, there wasn't really a pipeline, right? Like you graduated basic, you went to tech school, you were awaiting until your class started, and then you went through, I think it was 3 or 4 months that we went through. That was all you did. You did the 3-level course, and then you got pushed out to your assignment.
Okay. And this is what, 98?
No, this is 2001.
2001, okay.
So yeah, I guess I left that out. May 15, 2001 is when I shipped for basic. So
yeah, good timing.
Yeah, right. Go join this job that is, a wartime job. Yep. And then lo and behold, 4 months later, and we're at war. So definitely was an interesting thing. I will never forget being at Herbert Field, being at the Reef Chow Hall, having just gotten done with PT and sitting down and staring at that TV going, "Man, what kind of moron flies an airplane into a building?" Yep. And then we see the second one. Yep. And at that point, Herbert Field goes on, lockdown. Nobody's coming in, nobody's going out, and everybody's, freaking out. We had a guy in our class that was from New York. He had family that worked in the Trade Center. So, he's trying to get in touch with family members and whatnot. So definitely set the tone for the next 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you remember how you were feeling at the time? Was that settling in for you that, hey, I just joined a combat job when we're not in a wartime, and now it's starting to get real, right?
Yeah, so I don't think it did. Okay. Right? And the reason I say that is there's lots of people think they will know how they feel when something happens. Until it actually happens, and you don't know, right?
Yep. But in hindsight, we like to pretend like we do know exactly.
Oh yeah, exactly. Right.
It's just human nature.
99 out of 100 Americans will tell you exactly what would happen if a gun, if a gun was shot at them. Maybe they're right. Maybe they've had some training. Maybe they know what's going on. Yeah. Maybe
probably
they don't.
Not.
Maybe they buckle and they're in a little ball, behind the desk.
Most likely.
So until it happens, you just don't necessarily know.
It's true.
So no, it didn't set on me that I'm in a combat AFSC, war is happening. Like we are going to be front players in this war for the next 20 years. Like I would have never in a million years guessed that's what my career would look like.
Yeah. So up into that point, what was the difference in training pre and post 9/11? Like I've heard this story from numerous people is that training environment pre-war was completely different. Now you're going into, Iraq, it's an urban environment, it's a mountainous terrain, into Afghanistan. The tactics have had to shift from what used to be a lot of woods type training. So out in the woods, Vietnam-esque, right?
That's right. Yeah. So again, I don't have the luxury of it. I graduated I graduated tech school October of 2001. So everything I know is hey man, we're going to Afghanistan and then, Iraq down the road. So, you heard those stories, right? You had, it's interesting because it's, history kind of repeats itself, right? And we're kind of on the verge of another one of these lulls where we're not training for combat, so on and so forth. So, there was instructors that we had that all of their, war stories, if you will, were when they went to the National Training Center at Fort Irwin, right? Like that was their experience because, man, in the 8 years that they had leading up to it, they didn't have anything that they were getting after necessarily.
Peacetime environment.
Exactly.
The big thing for a squadron was the competition. Man, you guys are going to put together a team and they're going to train and they're going to represent our organization in the worldwide competition. Yeah. And man, you better crush it. That was the idea. It was a lot of, IP to target run-in type stuff, a lot of, hey, we would call it high threat cast. So you got to be in the weeds. You got to come in. You got to take out, your SA-6 or whatever the air threat was.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can get up there comfortable in the wheel overhead and start picking off targets, so on and so forth. One of the things that you guys, we were talking a little bit about earlier with the munitions, there's, you think about like World War II and the amount of civilians that were impacted by things that the Army was doing, things that the Air Force was doing, so on and so forth. Our precision has become the focal point, right? Like you can't afford to wound a civilian or let some effects happen, so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
So, transitioning from like, hey, used to, we could throw 500, 500-pound dumb bombs. We could throw 6 of them down in an area and like, it'll take care of what it needs to, no big deal. To no, we have to put this one bomb through this one window and delay fuse it maybe so that it doesn't have an effect on the rest of the room.
Yeah.
So trying to transition from, the, if you will, general purpose generation to like, man, we got to be precise, became a huge focus point.
And watching the technology evolve with that had to be pretty interesting, right? Because those requirements are driving the technology to change along with it. Did you see that there was a crossover with that, or some maybe overlap with the technology not being able to catch up to your requirements, or vice versa, that the technology being better than you guys needed at the time?
Yeah, so there was a bit of that, right? When you're trying to, initially you're trying to drop a JDAM, but you don't have any GPS type stuff. So I can pull an MGRS, 10-digit grid, 8-digit grid that gives me an idea where this thing needs to go. Well, now I've got to convert that to the appropriate lat long for the appropriate platform that's carrying this thing. To say like technology has absolutely made our job so much easier these days because they're seeing, hey, this is what we need. And the ability for industry and other folks to come out and put it together. Yeah. It's amazing. Things like Roberts Ridge, if that team had some of the things available to them to be able to just see what was around them, man, it could have been a different story, So, Map and Compass was what we worked on back in the day. It was
limited to the technology of your time. So how accurate would you say it is? Fly on the wall, 1 meter, 10 meters, 100 meters nowadays?
Oh, nowadays you can get to the 1 meter range easy.
Yeah.
And depending on how much time you have and what resources you have to look at it. Yeah. I mean, almost fly on the wall. You know what I mean? Depending on what munition and what time.
I mean, just a decade ago when both of us served, it was like to the 10 meters, you got 10 meters. Yeah. And that's just a decade ago. 10 meters. Now you can't, that's too much of a margin of error nowadays. It's like 1 meter, right? 8 to 10 digit grids. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Fly on the wall from, 30,000 feet up,
That's right.
It's incredible.
So when was your first deployment? I'm assuming pretty shortly after.
So surprisingly, it wasn't, right? So my first assignment, I got to go to Fort Carson, and I was with an armored cavalry regiment.
Okay.
Not a lot of armored cavalry getting pushed into the mountains of Afghanistan. And even then, right, I was a young guy. I was a 3-level. I wasn't a terminal attack controller qualified person yet. Like I still had, mission qualification training and upgrade training, stuff like that I had to get done.
Sure.
So it wasn't till the Iraq invasion that we went. Funny how you can remember certain things. The day after my 21st birthday is the day that we got on the plane to push out to Iraq. Chachi was with us on that one. So we went and we staged in Kuwait for a while and then made the drive up to Baghdad and over to Al Asad Air Base to kick that off. So that was the first of many deployments. Again, I wasn't a terminal attack qualified guy, but back then, the number of radios you had to carry, the number of batteries you had to carry, the number of things, like it was just almost humanly impossible for one person to do all those things. So we would go out in a 2-man team. One guy's actually controlling the airplanes, the other guy's, driving the truck or, helping build 9 lines so that he's ready to strike, so on and so forth. So,
gotcha.
My first deployment was not as a terminal attack controller. Came home, went to school, got qualified, and went back later that year as a back then it was enlisted terminal attack controller. Nowadays it's joint terminal attack controller.
JTAC now. So What was the difference like between those two deployments? Obviously, you were helping assist. I'm sure the other person was a JTAC at that point, right? The person you're helping assist,
that's right,
is qualified. So you go from that assisting position to a fully qualified position and redeploy the same year. What is that difference like for you now? Did you feel prepared to take on those responsibilities, or?
So I did. I had the good fortune. I got advice when I was at tech school, like, hey, when you get to your unit, don't say no. Right? Always have your bags packed and be ready to do whatever. I think I had been there 3 days, and there was a Humvee headed out to Airburst Range to go control some CAS.
Yeah.
And somebody's like, hey, we got an empty seat in the back if you want to go. I'm not passing up an opportunity.
Yeah.
And that just kind of stayed the whole time. So, it used to be that you would get a ton of controls before you could go to school. School was kind of the, check the box. Yep, he's good. And then you go back, you do a handful more controls and you get qualified. Mm-hmm. So I had a ton of controls before I went to school, before I went on that deployment.
Okay.
So, I would say to do the job, like I felt comfortable to be able to do the job, even if, that ETAC had gotten wounded or shot, something like that, to pick up the radio and be able to talk to the airplanes. And I had confidence in that skill set. So, So coming back the second time, the difference is now I don't have that senior guy above me that's doing all the planning with the jock and those guys. And it's all on you.
Yeah.
And you have to ask for the, planes. You have to put the plan together. You have to go brief the maneuver element, what's going on. And man, that was the spot that, man, as an E4, I'm having to tell O5s like, hey, that's not the way to use air power. That's not the way for us to employ this thing. And that can get stressful at times, but that's the main difference, I would say.
Sure. And that is a pretty unique position that you guys are in, given you're uniquely the only Air Force asset attached to Army groups like that. So the amount of responsibility that's placed on you guys is pretty significant, in my opinion, compared to most other enlisted jobs, especially as far as the Army's concerned. When's an 05 ever talking to an E4 in the Army?
Right.
It's never going to happen. Like, you're never going to see that. Whereas with the Air Force, that's, I guess it's a little bit more common. A little bit more commonplace, right?
Yeah.
You're the only Army guy here.
I know. But I was a Ranger. We do our own thing.
Yeah, that's true.
We have FOs.
That's right.
So tell me the difference between an FO and a TACP.
Yeah. So, an FO is it becomes a clearance type of thing, right? So, you can read a map and you can, pull grids and you can tell me what the terrain looks like, but you're not necessarily the most savvy on what weapon area looks like, what aircraft employment looks like, things of that nature. So, an FO, forward observer, like they're out there in a place, the TACP community, JTACs in general, they're a high demand, low density resource, right? So, you may have one at a battalion, not necessarily with the Rangers. They do, like you said, they do their own thing. But a conventional Army battalion, you may have one or two qualified terminal attack controllers to cover, 3 companies that are maneuvering at the same time. So, we would try to do our best to go, hey, this is the most dangerous or most likely, who's going to get in contact. Let's put a guy with them.
Limited resource kind of
That's
thing.
Right.
And honestly, kind of a godsend on... honestly, from hearing these kind of stories from the TACPs that we've talked to along the way, I do have to ask myself the question, we should take away the pride a little bit and incorporate TACPs into a Ranger attack element. Because one, I think I said a story earlier on this. I almost got killed by my own FO.
Please tell the story. It's a phenomenal story.
So I'm in Afghanistan at this time. We're, going after an HVT. It was like our third follow-on mission, which we're all tired and worn out. And we're, I was in a kind of just an overwatch position of this target. And, sure as shit, all hell breaks loose. So, we got squirters off the ejecta. Everybody's running away. And one guy just uphill tries to evade.
Smart.
Yeah.
And we're all just, being Rangers and going black on all our ammunition, trying to capture this guy, probably laughing too much. And so they called in a JDAM. So our FO calls in fire support for this guy going up the hill. And he's just evading everything. It's pretty funny. And so it hits, boom, you see the flash, and then you just see this glowing red whatever coming at me, and sure as shit, we're all just dive into the dirt, and it goes right above our heads and lands 50 feet behind us. It's this big ninja star, just piece of shrapnel.
Yikes.
And we actually hauled this thing about this big back home and hung it on our wall.
That's awesome.
And but it's could have used a TACP probably.
Yeah, probably.
Right. Or just maybe not 500 pounds for one dude.
Yeah. Or taking cover when the bomb was coming in. That's another. That's right.
I got to watch it go off.
Yeah, it's fireworks, baby.
It is funny how many times you see the cameras come out. You're like, guys, there's still a firefight going on.
Everyone's pulling out Polaroids.
Gotta get the footage.
Yeah. Never miss the shot. Yeah. Never miss that shot.
So walk us through a challenging mission that you've been on.
Oh, challenging.
I know that's always a tougher question.
Well, so one of the first that I legitimately got into, a firefight, contact type situation was a straight basketball pickup game, right? So I'm in Afghanistan and I'm there to do Karzai, personal protection at times, and then work strikes from a jock, right?
Okay.
So not necessarily a guy that is attached to any one maneuver element or anything like that. And we got info that there was a special troops battalion that was going to go conduct a meet in a place that we haven't been in a really long time, that was swarming with bad guys. So they brought it to us, went and talked to the boss, said, hey, what do you think? He said, man, go take a listen, right? Go listen to the intel brief, go, see what's going on, and then come back and tell me what you think. I said, all right. Went, listened to the brief, and if they were right, there's 150 to 200 fighters in the valley. If they were wrong, there's no fighters in the valley. I told the boss, I said, hey, if this goes sideways, I would much rather be out there with them than trying to get everything secondhand and control it from back here in the jock in an effort to try and get them out there. So
makes sense.
We're out there and we're up in the hillside, and the guys get to the meet and nobody's there. Right? Big surprise. Yeah. Right. So been a little bit of contact. We had a north-south screening element, an east-west screening element. North-south element was in contact. We could hear the Mark 19 going off, some of that. In comms with them, no big deal. They're okay. They've got everything covered. Just, some pop shots out from a field, whatever.
Sure.
So I've got a B1 overhead. I even pushed the B1 of those guys on their freak, said, hey, check in with them because I'm having trouble, creating that comm link. No issues, right? B1 can't really do a whole lot for them at that time. B1 checks off because it's time for us to head back. Been no activity. And we got some intel that folks were planning the attack. So, all right, cool, whatever. So the north-south element stays up there. The blue element, the command element left, and then we pile all of us into the last couple Humvees to get out of there. And of course, they wait to the last couple Humvees to open up a near-side ambush on us.
Sure. Why wouldn't they?
Why wouldn't they? Right. So we're in the back of the convoy. Obviously, I think I'm in the middle vehicle if I recall correctly. The front vehicle gets disabled, so we're in up armors. But you want to talk about complicated? Try trying to talk off an embidder through an up armored Humvee, and I was in the back seat. We had a gunner that was doing gunner things. So we're trying to hand up. Again, Mark 19. Love that thing. But man, trying to hand up Mark 19 rounds to this guy so he can reload and things of that nature. So that was my first real experience of, kind of, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then absolutely helpless. right? Where Afghanistan jammers are running, right? So I'm throwing out calls in the blind to try and get people to get some assets for us. And I get a couple A-10s that come in. So we get into a security posture, and we get to employ, but absolutely helpless, sitting in the back of that Humvee, looking at people shooting at us. Our gunners are getting after it. And then to know that 2 out of our 3 trucks were disabled. Oh, by the way, like we were the last 3 trucks. So, if there's a follow-on force, if there's something else in front of us, that team that's going to have to come back to get us is going to have to fight their way to us, not just cruise. Yeah. So turns out, the A-10s checked in and everybody decides that they want to stop shooting at that point. So, the element coming back to us didn't meet any resistance. We take care of business, and then we head out, getting shot at the entire way out of the valley. Again, the A-10s had an in-flight emergency. So, hey, the shooting had stopped. I can't really ask that, you send me some other planes, other people in the theater need it. We get out of the valley, and I see some Apaches hanging out. And thank God there was a frequency that I could pull them up on, and they provided armed overwatch for us. And then, the last thing that happens is we kind of, catch our breath. We've got all the elements together. I see these dudes have a guy on a stretcher. I'm like, what in the world is going on? And it turned out, the smart gunner that he wanted to be super alert that day and decided to drink like 4 Red Bulls or Rippets or whatever it was we had.
The Rippets.
Yeah.
And no water,
shotgunning Rippets.
Right? So the guy is going into shock because he heat-catted out here. So finally we get...
What was his name? Private what? God.
Lucky for us, we were a 2 or 3 minute helicopter flight from Bagram. So the Apaches were able to get me a medevac bird out there. We got this guy on the medevac bird, and then we got back.
What a burden.
Yeah.
On your contingent.
After a firefight,
a burden.
It's a ripid overdose is what he gets medevaced for.
That's right.
That's strong.
That honestly is embarrassing.
I've picked up some people from some pretty embarrassing shit in the past.
That's embarrassing, but it also could potentially get your team killed because you aren't taking care. You're the weakest link. Congratulations.
I picked up more than one Marine in Afghanistan for attempting to pleasure themselves using CLP because it's got lubricant in the name.
Quality.
Yeah, that is.
It doesn't work. It does not work.
It's not the right lube.
It's not. It's true story. If you want to talk about horrible medevacs, that's probably bottom tier right there.
So
bottom tier.
Let me ask you, because I've seen this before, and I'll tell you what, seeing that A-10 come in and doing its work is one of the coolest and most exciting and terrifying displays of what we're capable of. Like, how did that feel, calling that thing in?
Yeah, so it was awesome.
It was great.
It turned out that, it was both the lead pilot and then mine's first combat employment for CAS.
All at the same time.
So that was pretty cool.
Nice.
And Apaches, that's double whammy.
Yeah. The Apaches are awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, the A-10 and that gun going off, I understand why nobody wanted to shoot at us anymore. You know what I mean?
And it echoes through that valley, those valleys so well.
Yeah, psychological warfare. It's classified as psychological warfare for a reason.
Yeah,
I'm sad that they do not authorize any painting on aircraft anymore.
As far as you're talking like the kills.
Teeth. You remember the teeth on those things that they painted on the A-10s?
Yeah, I don't know if they still have those or not.
They're not authorized anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not authorized to paint on those things. And talk about psychological warfare. You see a dragon coming at you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's...
Oh, shit.
Breathing fire.
Some silly decisions, right? Like, what difference does it make that an A-10 has teeth painted on it or not? You know what I mean?
Well, honestly,
who cares?
It's supposed to terrify you.
That's right.
Are we supposed to be professional? That's this thing's coming at us. It looks lovely.
Yeah.
The paint job. There's no paint job on there.
Nice neutral tones.
Like a Joker smiley face on there instead. I don't know.
That'd be better. I'd like that, a smiley face.
Smiley faces across there.
Before we employ on you.
Yeah.
I had a...
this is comforting.
I was sitting at a QRF on an airfield waiting to be spun up. And an Apache helicopter did its hover test and stared at me on purpose, I think. I mean, this thing was so close. And it did its and I was like, man, if I was on the opposite end of that as an enemy, I would shit myself. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
legitimately.
They're awesome. I tell you though, little birds and their ability to, if they got great pods.
Yeah. And like your feet dangling off those and just going off. Man, that's intense. And they're wicked fast too. They're wicked fast.
Yeah. That was a sad day when they retired the little birds and the Kiowa.
Well, it's okay. Houston SWAT team actually has 2 little birds. Did you know that?
Nice.
Probably not employing the same way, but yeah, they're pretty rad.
They are. Who knows?
They are. Yeah. It's a damn war zone.
Yeah, damn war zone in Houston.
Yeah. Houston. That's crazy. So yeah, that's got to be powerful but scary at the same time. It's your first introduction. And what better way to be introduced to the military than being ambushed?
That's right. But the old cliche, right? Like training takes over. It did, right? Like there wasn't time to be like, oh, let's worry about what's going to happen. It's like, man, get the airplanes here. Like that's your job. That's what we're paying you to do. Get it done.
Yep.
That this particular one, because it was a pickup game, the ground force commander wasn't used to having me attached to him. So he's, a Ranger tabbed guy and he's got his NCO that's Ranger tabbed and they're getting ready to mount this assault to go through this, field or whatever. And like I had already asked for planes, right? Like I took a little liberty and didn't ask him. Like I realized the situation. And as about the time he's getting ready to start on this foot patrol, it dawned on him like, oh, hey, I've got this other guy. Like maybe we don't have to go walk into this shit show and potentially put somebody at risk.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just another day on the range at that point.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny how you do fall back to the training, especially when it kicks off like that in a surprise. And I mean, that's why they spend so much money training you guys to the level that they do, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to move forward a little bit. So I mean, you've been on 9 deployments, is what you said, right? That's a significant amount. Was it mostly Middle East, or have you
all of it?
All Middle East.
That's right.
Right.
See the world, they say.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there? When was your most recent deployment, or when was your last one?
So I think it was when did ISIS flare up? 14, 15?
14. Yeah.
So we went in as part of the crew to go out and do the assessments on the security forces and things of that nature to decide, who's not corrupt, who is, like who can we partner with, and basically opened up the theater again. So that was my last trip.
Okay,
it's been a while.
And since then, you've been primarily taking care of training duties here at Lackland or Chapman Annex, I guess, right?
Randolph.
So I'm at Randolph now. Yeah. So when we got done there, I think that was 15. I came back at the end of 15. I went over to the Special Tactics Training Squadron on Herbie.
Okay.
Did a little bit of time there. I did some recruiting, assessment, and selection stuff. Did some op soup time, some training shop time, and then got picked up to come out here to Chapman Annex.
Okay.
Was at Chapman for about 16 months, and then got an opportunity to go work for the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program.
Oh, awesome.
Worked for that for about a year, and then been doing assignments the rest of the time.
How was the AFW2? That's what they call it, right? How was working for that? I mean, that's a relatively new program that they've stood up in the past few years.
Yeah, so it's been around for a while. A lot of people will, you say Wounded Warrior, they think Wounded Warrior Project or some of the nonprofit type stuff. But it's an Air Force funded, federally funded, congressionally mandated program that really is just there to take care of airmen, in their worst times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was hugely rewarding, right? Because you get to, at that point when I was there, I was given the opportunity to swing way above my pay grade, right? Okay. So I was an E8 there. But the placement, I had access to all the command chiefs and folks of that nature because we'd get a message, Johnny's having issues with X.
Yeah.
Right? And you could try and call their squadron SEL and maybe you get through to that guy or you don't. But you had access when you weren't getting the answers or the things that you needed to take care of an airman.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go get to the right person to get that airman taken care of. So absolutely amazing opportunity to take care of folks and just, transitioning is a difficult thing when you're a normal person, you're going to transition.
Yep.
Man, if you're going through a med board process or things of that nature where maybe you thought you were going to have a 20-year career and now you're out in 4 years because you got a terrible diagnosis or something of that nature.
Yeah.
Man, the program is there to help guide you along and then try and set you up for success. So it's awesome to see what they get to do for our folks.
And I'll back you on that because I've worked with the Air Force Wounded Warrior program pretty significantly during my exit from the military. But there is no other military section, I guess, that I've ever dealt with that offers individualistic care like that program did. I mean, you get a project manager who manages your entire case, or a case manager, I guess would be the actual verbiage for it. But they truly care, and they go out of their way for individualistic care. I've never found that at any other point in the military, even when seeking medical treatment. It came down to, well, we'll put you in when we can get you in. That program, they called me once a week when I was transitioning out to make sure I had everything that I needed. They offered, I mean, I got 30 or 40 emails a week with different programs that were going on in the area. So, I mean, kudos to you for working on that program, because I truly think it is one of the best transitional programs and programs in the military, like specifically.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you went from doing that and then moved over to Randolph from there, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so AFW2 is actually at Randolph.
Yeah, okay.
So I went from one building to the second floor on the building next door and started working assignments for our guys. Okay,
so now you manage, that's big picture stuff, right?
Generally speaking, right? So I have all of the TACP, combat control, pararescue, special reconnaissance, and then we just picked up SEER specialists.
Okay.
So I manage all of those assignments for all the E-8s and below across the Air Force.
Since you mentioned it, special reconnaissance, this is a new career field for the Air Force. They transitioned the old combat weather guys into special reconnaissance, right?
That's right. So they were combat weather for a while, turned into SAUT. SAUT has now turned into special reconnaissance.
What can you dive into special reconnaissance a little bit? Because that's something that we haven't really covered here. And I'm just curious what their actual position is and how it's changed. Obviously, they're no longer weathermen. But I'm curious what their actual role is, because it's not something I've experienced yet.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that it's not. There's no doctrine to it yet. Right?
Okay,
like they're building the plane while it's flying, if you will. Weathermen was probably a disservice to them because guys would go out and they were doing many other things besides weather.
Yeah.
And then it has the potential to be one of the coolest jobs that we're going to have in special warfare, right? Like you think about special reconnaissance and the things that you can do with special reconnaissance. You almost think of it as the most well-rounded operator versus, hey, I'm a JTAC and hey, you're a survey guy and hey, you're a medic. Like, oh man, I get to do close target recognition, or I get to do, I get to go out and see what the depths of these rivers are to know if we could bring in boats to do this thing that we're trying to do down the road to you name it, right?
Okay.
So, how each of them are being employed at different times is kind of up to who's got them and what they can and what the mission set is that they need to do right now. But man, I would probably be doing you a disservice if I was to go, hey, here's the 12 things that they are set to be great at right now.
Okay. It sounds more of a generalist position that falls under special operations still.
That's right.
Yeah. I guess we'll see the evolution over the next couple of years too.
Interestingly enough, it's going to be a topic of subject for how modern warfare affects that as well. Like depths of a river, for instance. We could do that with lasers now.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So like how to implement that and change it up and how it's going to change in the future. Where do you see it going without obviously diving too deep into OPSEC?
Yeah. So I mean, when you talk about special operations and things of that nature, like I think there's always going to be some sort of boots on the ground. Whether that's relationship building, even training partner forces, right? Like, man, that's what SF was once upon a time, was go in and train the guerrilla force to be able to do whatever they need to do, et cetera. So there's going to be opportunities like that, as just the nature changes.
I think that's where we're going to be just locked into, though, is special operations.
That's right.
Like, everything else is going to be outsourced by, droned equipment or satellite imagery, things like of that nature. There's always going to be a need for physical boots on the ground, in my opinion.
100% agree.
Yeah. Unless we get robots and we just drop them in.
Also down for that.
Spacecraft. Yes. That's what I want.
The finger of God.
Space Rangers.
Yeah. We've been, you are a space ranger, or you're about to be.
Not yet.
About to be.
We're not going to talk about it yet.
You're about to be.
The first official, yes. So that's amazing. So, amazing career field. We probably dove so in depth into what it is to be a TACP, which is amazing. I think that's beneficial for our audience. But there's more work that you do.
That's right.
The TACP Foundation.
That's right.
I want to take the remaining time we have to talk about the work that you do there. Obviously, through the Air Force's Wounded Warrior program, you're able to facilitate a lot of that, taking care of airmen that, haven't had that in the past. What do you do at the TACP Foundation?
Yeah, so the TACP Foundation, it is meant, in big picture things, it's complementary, right? Because the Air Force is still going to do things for survivors of, folks that are lost in combat, lost in training, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But they don't do it like we do it, right? So, what we've learned in these small teams, right? Like you grow up and it becomes brothers, right? It's not coworkers. It's not, Johnny over there, even when we deploy and we go with an ODA or things of that nature, like our goal is to make them bring us in as part of the family type thing. So you get that real tight-knit bond, you get the we can bicker with each other, but don't you try to come in because then we're all going to form the shield and come at you kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, in 2010, we lost Brad Smith, right? And one of the things that we had is we had a TACP association back then. It was a C-19 veteran-run type organization. And, there's some guys, funny enough, we're standing around sitting around all the black rifle stuff. Guys like JT that were down at our TACP schoolhouse at the time and said, man, like we are not taking care of our folks like we could. We could be better than what we are right now.
Yeah.
And they started to put together a plan, right? Charlie Keyball, some of these other guys, they all got in a room and they go, man, how can we take care of our people better than what we are doing? You know? And they just started brainstorming, right? They started bringing together, resources and assets and things of that nature. And man, the TACP Association took off, right? So in 2010, right, we kind of course corrected and started moving out in that direction. About 2015, 16 timeframe, I got involved with the association.
Okay.
And man, Charlie Keyball was running it. I was trying to help him out, trying to take things off his plate. And he decides at the end, I think it was the end of 15, that he was going to step down and wanted me to be the president of the association. Okay. And I was like, whoa, man, like, no, I got a kind of active duty dude here still, got other things going on. So we kind of blindly, I took it and started running the association. Well, we fast forward. I go to step down from the association. Chachi was my vice at the time. Chachi takes it over. And we kind of have an offsite. And we realized that there was an opportunity missing to better take care of our folks, right? So at Salt Lake Airport, over a beer, we decided, hey, man, we need to stand up the TACP Foundation and have a parallel organization to our association that can go out and do things a little bit differently. So we do it. We stand up the foundation. We go through the process to become a C3. Mm-hmm. And what we did is we tried to take it and we want to do more of the professionalized things. We want to do more of the predictable long-term things. And that's what we did, right? Okay. So, our association, our foundation, like one of the key things is keeping the Gold Star family members involved, right? Mm-hmm. For the folks that I've met, in the worst of times, I always feel bad when I say it to them, but I mean it 100%. Somebody that just lost their husband just gains, 1,500 active duty, men that are going to be able to step in and help out when you need the garbage, picked up around the house or something. You need this light bulb replaced, so on and so forth. So, these kids are growing up without their father because, man, he laid it out and paid the ultimate sacrifice for the country. Yeah. Man, we can be there and we can do things for them as they continue to grow up and whatnot. So the foundation does that for our Gold Star children, right? Like we have a program where we step in where dad would have stepped in, generally speaking, right? So when they turn 16, we cut them a check to help them get their first car because, man, dad would have been there to help them get in their set of wheels and get that thing going, When they turn 18, we cut them another check because, man, they need to set up an apartment or they're going to college and, need a little bit of spending money in the account or whatnot. And then we try to catch them sometime around 25, right? Graduating college, buying a house, getting married, like all things that dad would have been around for. Man, we're going to have some sort of footprint in that life and continued touch point. So, that's a huge one that we do. We call it TACP for life. So that's a sliver of it. We're starting to get into the transition stuff.
Okay.
Having worked with AFW2, man, I got to see like their empowerment and transition and how you can take a demographic, right, and tailor things towards them.
Yes.
Man, an Air Force special warfare guy, it's going to write a resume a little bit different than a personnelist is going to write. You know what I mean? And then how do you capture things like stress tolerance and drive and things of that nature that a lot of people want in their organization, but it's not what the Air Force has us report on a constant basis, right?
Yeah.
So trying to figure out ways to continue to give back to the TACP community and set them up for success as they go. We got a memorial stone program so that we try to put a memorial stone. I think we put 3, maybe I think the 4th one goes in this summer.
Okay.
We're trying to put memorial stones at each of the ASOSs, right? Because, we like to say that you die twice, right? Once when you go into the ground and then once when people stop saying your name.
Yep.
Well, man, we want TACPs for generations to be able to look at that and remember those guys and keep their name alive, So, those are kind of the main programs. We also do scholarships, right? We give $4,000, $3,000 scholarships away to family members and folks connected to the TACP community. And I would tell you we're okay right now, right? We're trying to get to great. Like there's lots of things on the horizon where we'll get from okay to good and good to great in order to give back to the TACP community. So it's been pretty rewarding to be able to take care of a community, especially when it's in a lot of the worst circumstances at times.
Absolutely. The fact that these family members, the children and wives are losing their husbands or their fathers, and you guys all step in to continue and take that beyond what likely could have been the end of their career, right? If they're making it to that point when the kid's turning 18, they're not going to see the foundation, or they're not going to see that continuation beyond into their lives like their father would be there. So for you guys to step in and really take that to another level and continually give that care for long term, that's pretty amazing. And for you to just use that, call that good. I think you guys are already in the great category, but
thanks.
I can't wait to see what when you call yourself great, where you guys are going to be at then.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's phenomenal.
We appreciate you continuing to serve. 3 more years in the military, and you're still doing great things on the outside and giving more and more. That's incredible. We love hearing those stories. We love, first of all, where can we find you guys?
Yeah, so we've got a website, we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, TACPfoundation.org. You can follow us there. LinkedIn, we're on there. And follow the TACP Foundation page. We do memorial toast for guys. We do, if you want information about what's going on, Facebook and LinkedIn are probably the 2 easiest ways to figure out where we're at and what's going on.
Perfect. That's incredible. Well, man, you have been an incredible guest. Thank you so much for diving into some of the details and your story. We appreciate it. And man, you rock. You just rock,
Thanks,
dude.
brother. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. This has been the MedEvac Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't forget to check out the TACP Foundation and reach out to Marcus if you have any questions about how you can support. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.